Before we begin, of course, I want to acknowledge that we are gathered today on the traditional territory of the signatories of Treaty 6. I also want to acknowledge the Métis people of Alberta, of course, who have a deep connection to the land. Today, we've tabled Bill 4, the Public Safety Emergency Services Statute Amendment Act 2025. Legislation addresses three key areas across Alberta's public safety systems, ensuring Albertans can rely on modern, effective, and coordinated systems that keep our communities safe. Specifically, the bill will help strengthen the foundation of the new Alberta Sheriff's Police Service, improve information sharing to protect Albertans at risk of domestic violence under Clare's Law, and modernize operational procedures under the Corrections Act. While these proposed changes affect different parts of Alberta's public safety framework, they all serve the same overreaching goal. To keep Albertans safe while making sure the laws that we rely on remain current, effective, and of course responsive to the needs of Albertans. So let's begin with the Alberta Sheriff's Police Service. When we announced the creation of the ASPS, the goal was very clear: to strengthen the public safety across the province by augmenting and supporting law enforcement while also giving municipalities another choice in how they meet their law enforcement needs. With the changes that we are announcing today, we are taking the next steps needed to get the ASPS ready for operation by confirming the labor relations framework for its future police officers. If passed, the bill will ensure that the ASPS police officers fall under the Police Officer Collective Bargaining Act, providing the same collective bargaining rights and labor relation rules as municipal police officers. This includes the requirement to form a police association. Next, the bill also includes amendments to Clare's Law. Every Albertan, of course, deserves to live free from fear of the threat of domestic violence. And Clare's Law is a critical tool that gives Albertans at risk of domestic violence a way to access information about their partner so that they can make informed choices about their safety. Alberta's government will always, of course, stand up for survivors of domestic violence. The proposed amendments would strengthen Clare's Law to ensure that people at risk can quickly get the information that they need to stay safe. Right now, the government's Integrated Threat and Risk Assessment Center, or known as ITRAC, depends on a patchwork of agreements and memorandums of understanding with police services to access information from their databases. I've heard from police services, and these amendments are filling the gap to mandate consistency in the province as the demand for Clare's Law and disclosure have increased. These informal arrangements have created uncertainty when working with police agencies, sometimes delaying the sharing of critical information. And of course, I've heard from stakeholders, and I am fixing it. These proposed amendments clearly define the role and authority of ITRAC to access the critical information it needs to complete comprehensive threat assessments. By cutting red tape and clarifying ITRAC's legal authority, these changes will reduce delays and make it easier for police and partners to share information responsibly. These housekeeping amendments strike the right balance between protecting privacy and protecting Albertans from harm, as recommended by the Privacy Commissioner. Finally, the bill makes targeted updates to the Corrections Act to modernize operations within Alberta's correctional facilities. The amendments will establish a very clear legislated framework for transferring remand and provincial sentenced inmates between jurisdictions, aligning Alberta's policy with other provinces and territories. While Alberta currently has agreements in place for transferring federally sentenced individuals, there is a need to support the transfer of remanded and provincially or territorially sentenced inmates. The proposed amendments provide clarity for Alberta to transfer adult inmates across jurisdiction and streamline correctional operations. And in closing, the Public Safety and Emergency Services Statutes Amendment Act 2025 reflects the government's ongoing commitment to ensure that Albertans are protected by strong, coordinated, and of course modern public safety laws. Whether it's establishing the ASPS, protecting those at risk of domestic violence, or of course improving operations in the correctional system, this is about safer communities. So thank you. With that, I'll take some questions.
This brings us to the question and answer portion of our announcement. We do have reporters with their hands up. I just please ask that you state your name and outlet before asking your question. Go ahead, Catherine.
Okay, Catherine Krakowski, All Alberta. So one of the things that the AUP had brought up when we were moving to these police-like functions from from just a peace officer was that they should be compensated for their work. So I'm wondering, with this new way of collective bargaining, what can we expect in terms of compensation and both in pay and benefits for these new officers in this new force?
Well, first of all, police officers, which is why we're doing this basically new labor component of this, is that police officers have to be represented by police associations, and that's why we have the police officer collective bargaining agreement, right, which is what this legislation is specifically about. And so you will see that police officers, once those folks who are peace officers who will eventually go through the training and to become police officers, they will of course be compensated somewhere consistent with other police services in the province of Alberta. What this also does, of course, allows for the creation of a police association. For those of you who know or do not know, this is something that occurs organically. So once you have 5 or more police officers within a organization, a police association can be created. That has nothing to do with government and something that is actually arm's length from government.
Did you have a follow-up, Catherine?
Yeah, so over the course of the summer, there was the Alberta Next panel, and one of the questions was about, do you want to see an Alberta provincial police? And previously you said there would be a referendum question. Looks like we're moving ahead anyway, so I guess I'm wondering, what was the point of asking if you're creating a provincial police force anyway?
Well, I think you probably seen with the hands in the room that every vote that we had in there, regardless of where we were in the province of Alberta, was certainly very supportive of that. But, you know, as I have said, and as I will continue to say, there is no decision that has been made. As I said in my notes, we are augmenting and supporting all police services in Alberta. We are augmenting and supporting those in the RCMP. We're augmenting and supporting those in Calgary and Edmonton, and any jurisdiction. We talk about fair compensation. There are folks that are doing police-like functions. So over 600 people have been identified as doing police-like functions. This is another reason why that we are moving towards this independent police service, the Alberta Sheriff's Police Service, because those folks who are doing wonderful work. I mean, we are seeing the folks in the scan teams that are knocking it out of the ballpark right throughout the province of Alberta. We're seeing our fugitive apprehension teams doing remarkable work. We're seeing our surveillance teams doing remarkable work. And we're seeing those who are out there on the highway patrol doing a fantastic job. And as they're out there, of course, they're able, you know, as we build this police service, and they become trained as police officers, which is a very small gap to fill, but one that we're working on filling, those individuals will be able to work with the police of jurisdiction in order to assist and take calls to service.
Michelle, you can go ahead.
Minister, I wonder if you could clarify why police cannot be members of a union. Like, they have to form their own union. I think there's a very specific reason for it, but I was wondering if you could explain what it is.
Yeah, I will. I'll tell you. I'll get the piece of legislation on that. Certainly, there are folks that certainly a lot more experienced than me who have been part of a police associations or former presidents of police associations who I personally known in the province of Alberta and specifically Calgary and folks in Edmonton and stuff like that. I will get them to reference the specific piece of legislation, but police officers are very unique, not just in regards to their collective bargaining, of course, their essential services or their essential service, but also when it comes to representing them and defending them, regardless of what an allegation may be, whether it be with an organization or something that may be within the scope of their job, they have to have a certain representation, I would say that. So we'll get to that exact legislation on that.
Does it have anything to do with the fact that they could be in a conflict of interest? Like, for example, if they were policing something where maybe a union was involved and let's just say an altercation or something like that, and they've got to police somebody who could potentially be a same member of their union. I'm wondering if that having a police association prevents that from happening? I think it was suggested to us in the tech briefing, that's
Yeah.
why I'm asking.
Again, I think we have to get the piece of legislation. It's not a new piece of legislation. It's something that's been around a while, and this is why I think I said in my notes that, you know, what we're doing is consistent with all municipal police services in the province of Alberta. So, but we'll get you that exact piece of legislation. I think it's important for you guys to have that. And that's, again, this is what this is about in regarding any civilian employee that may be with the Alberta sheriffs. Again, organically, they will have to make a decision what they want to do. If there's some that want to stay with their current provider, which is the AUP, or some that want to do something else. But again, that becomes a worker's right to choose what they want to do. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi, Minister. Cindy Tran with the Edmonton Journal. You mentioned those 600 sheriffs that were previously identified. Where are you at in, I don't want to say converting, but turning those sheriffs into police officers, and if there's a timeline for that?
Yeah, well, you know, this is a very heavy lift. There's a series of pieces of legislation. There will be another piece of legislation, you know, that's going to be coming in the spring, right? But again, it's a series of pieces of legislation. I wish I could sit there and tell you, you know, as of this date, we are going to have X number of police officers. I can't do that. I can tell you that Chief Parhar has been working very hard behind the scenes with a transitional team to figure out policies and procedures and what that is actually going to look like when it comes to the training. What I can tell you, and something that I have said for quite some time, is that the gap between those who are the peace officers that I mentioned, whether it be scan officers or you know, EPU officers or those who do highway patrol, the training between them and a fully trained police officer is not as great of a gap as people think. And, you know, I don't want to put a number on it, but I will say somewhere in the realm of 6 to 8 weeks of additional training. And so what we're doing is trying to coordinate so that when this full transition does take place, that the new police organization will have the ability to get those folks trained up to the capacity of a full trained police officer.
And is there a budget yet or a cost for this new agency?
So, yeah, I know everybody wants to talk about that, and the only thing that has happened under budget 2025, of course, is the $6 million that has been allocated for Chief Parhar and is really his executive team to start doing some of the transitional work. You know, what will happen is that there will be a budget, which is under the Alberta Sheriff's Branch, right? So remember, those are the peace officers. So under the Alberta Sheriff's Branch, that will be transferred into the last piece of legislation that we did, which was the formation of the Crown Corporation. But again, that's something that we'll have to do at a later date.
We do have some reporters on the line. Operator, can you put forward the first caller?
The first question comes from the line of Darren Rathwell from 660 News. Please go ahead.
Hi there.
Hi.
Thank you for taking my call. I'm wondering about criticism in the past, arguing the government missed the mark on crime and justice by focusing too heavily on enforcement and punishment while not going far enough with the root causes such as addictions, homelessness, and poverty. Are you planning on addressing more on that side of things with the pieces of legislation you've mentioned?
Well, I might have to push back on you a little bit there. As one of the architects behind the internationally recognized recovery-oriented system of care, we've created a system that is unlike anywhere, quite frankly, in North America. And this is about helping people who are facing severe mental health and addictions issues. So yeah, when you talk about a holistic approach to dealing with very, very complex issues, yes, we're tackling it from every single angle. We're tackling it from the officer presence component and trying to deal with the social and civil disorder. We're tackling it from the organized crime perspective, where over 4,000 organized crime groups have been allowed to set up shop here in Canada, and this is why we've invested an enormous amount of money into Alert, and as previously indicated, the SCAN teams are doing a remarkable job. Our border interdiction teams are working very closely with the federal RCMP and the CBSA. These alert and all of these organizations are working very closely with the DEA, the ATF, and other American organizations to tackle that. And of course, then we have the other side of things, where the people who are faced with the neurobiological illness of addiction, and those that might be having severe mental health issues. So quite frankly, yes, we're dealing this in a very holistic manner and trying to tackle this from every single angle. And this is why you are starting to see some of the positive things when it comes to, say opioid fatalities, for instance. You're going to see that sort of thing. We're starting to see numbers starting to go down here in the province of Alberta. I certainly had a phone call earlier today with Chief McCullen, talking about some of her initiatives that she's going to be planning on doing in the city of Calgary to tackle some of the social and civil disorders. So, yes, the simple question to you, answer to your question is yes. Thank you.
Did you have a follow-up, sir?
It sounds like the tentacles are spread out in a lot of different areas. I'm wondering, it sounds like a lot of, what you discussed just now is a lot of elements that are already in play. Are you thinking of making any additional changes in that regard?
Well, so just remember, there is no single solution to an extremely complex problem. And so again, this is why we have to tackle this from every single angle, right? We have to make sure that people have the ability to get the help that they need. We have to help. We have to make sure that organized crime is not continuing to wreak havoc in our cities, and we also have to make sure that, as I've said before, people have rights. People have rights to walk down the street and not be assaulted. People have a right to walk down the street and not inhale secondhand crystal meth smoke, and that's why we're going forward with compassionate intervention as an example. So we are trying to tackle this from every single angle to make sure that the people of Alberta feel safe. And we're trying to make sure those who are afflicted with the illness of addiction or those afflicted with the mental health issues, that they get the help that they need. And we also make sure that those who have committed crimes, quite frankly, that they are held accountable for the crimes for which they have committed. And I think it would be worth me mentioning here the success that we have had in our therapeutic living units. Do you know the success that we've had in our therapeutic living units are to the point where not only have they been recognized internationally, but conversations that I've had with Minister Anggar Gasari, he's been so impressed that he wants to come to Calgary to take a look at our therapeutic living units to see if this is a potential option that they can do in some of their federal facilities. Because I do not believe, which is part of, we'll say, the base of this, I do not believe that someone needs to be suffering with their addiction issue while they sit in jail only to be released into the same cycle of abuse or handed a ticket to the drop-in center. I don't believe in that. What I want to make sure is that those who are incarcerated, who have committed those crimes and been convicted of those crimes, as an example, that they actually get the help that they need, so that when they are released, they are not released into the cycle of abuse, that they are released where they can get supports when it comes to getting a job and getting a place to live. So this is all about stopping the recidivism and stopping that endless cycle of abuse that we see each and every day.
We do have time for one more question here from the floor. Isaac, I see you had your hand up. You can go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Mr. Isaac Lamoureux, True North. In the documents you set out today, I only saw one mention of the RCMP and its continued policing efforts in the province. So I'm curious, has the RCMP or Ottawa fulfilled their promise of officer additions in Alberta?
Well, look, I just got back from a federal provincial territorial meeting, and I'll just say this. Manitoba, they had indicated that their authorized strength level is short by 30%. Saskatchewan had indicated they're short by 25%. In our jurisdiction, we hover anywhere from 16 to 20% shortage, and other provinces that all have that same issue. So, as I said to the minister in Manitoba, like, this is the same number that you gave us last year. So the question was, you haven't seen any marked improvements when it comes to authorized strength levels. So, look, I can't wait for the RCMP to figure out how they're going to recruit, how they're going to train, how they are going to fulfill the authorized strength gaps that they have all throughout Canada. My concern, as I've stated many, many times before, when somebody calls 911, my expectation is somebody show up to that call.
Did you have a follow-up, Ozzy?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's been any discussions with Ottawa about what a transition process away from the RCMP might look like.
Yeah, I think the Minister Angry, obviously there's varying opinions on this, and Minister Angry had indicated to all the provinces that he is open to any and all discussions.
All right, I'd like to thank everybody for coming today. This concludes our press conference.
Have a good day. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.